Was it the prequel that no one needed or asked for? Absolutely. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is the prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy. It's about its main villain, President Snow. In this book, he is only Coriolanus Snow, and he's 18 years old and has been tasked with mentoring a tribute from District 12 called Lucy Gray. In this book, the games are particularly new. It's only the 10th Hunger Games, so everything that's happened up until now has been a sort of seasoning. They're trying to build up the games, they're trying to build up this reputation, and they still don't really have the resources that they do in the original trilogy. It's very much a starting point. Even so, a lot of the characters have their doubts about whether the games are actually ethical, which is an interesting question to pose when somewhat 60 years later they're still doing it. I had a lot of issues with this book. It took me so long to get into, and it felt never ending. The first half of this book was so slow. It was too slow. It took forever to get going. It felt to me like nothing was happening for a good part of the book until they got to the main event, which was the Hunger Games. It was so boring. It was so boring. The first half of this book was so slow, but the second half was much better. At the point where the games actually begin, I got pretty into it, and I think that's a testament to the fact that the games are action-packed usually. What was interesting to me is that whereas you're in Katniss's point of view for the original trilogy, for the prequel, obviously everything is in Snow's point of view, so you see everything that Snow's doing, and it's everything that's outside of the arena, and I find that quite interesting. It's something that you get to see in the movies, so it was definitely a new perspective that I quite liked. Another thing that I liked about this book was Lucy Gray's personality. She's a District 12 tribute. The only other District 12 tributes that we know of are Haymitch and Katniss and Peter. And so in that sense, it was cool to see, in addition to that sort of small squad of notable tributes, Lucy Gray is a very interesting character. She is completely different to Katniss, and I think that that's a really good way to go around things. She is charismatic, she has this big personality, she likes music, she likes singing, and the Capitol falls in love with her, and so does President Snow. There were a lot of aspects of the prequel that directly linked to the original trilogy, and for the most part I really liked this. I think that most of the things that I was engaged with had to do with the original trilogy and had to do with those sort of links. A lot of the lullabies that we read and or hear in the movies are in the book. The importance of Lucy Gray's character and all the connections to the books, like all these lullabies that you hear Katniss sing in the original trilogy, obviously makes sense to the idea that President Snow has a grudge against Katniss Everdeen. And I like that Suzanne Collins made that sort of link. But at the same time, the entire book, I felt myself asking, this is probably really predictable. We already know what's going to happen. Why is this relevant? There are a lot of interesting characters to go around in the Hunger Games universe, whether that's any of the other previous tributes, the Korea tributes, any of the other game makers. Like, there could have been a good story out of that. To pick President Snow was an interesting choice. Personally, I think that Finnick Odair could have been a really good character to write a prequel on. His games are super exciting. He's the youngest tribute to ever win. Haymitch is another tribute that had a really interesting games, and it shaped his character pretty strongly. So it would have been really interesting to see a prequel for his games. And literally for any other character. Like, I don't know why President Snow seemed to be the obvious option here. It's hard to read a book about a villain who you know has done so much harm and is a terrible person, and it's very hard to read a book about him falling in love and finding his way through life like a coming-of-age story. I think the biggest takeaway from this book is that it lacked a lot of the excitement of the original Hunger Games trilogy. And it also lacked the depth of character. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is full of symbolism to do with the original trilogy and full of symbolism about what President Snow is going to become, and those were the most interesting parts of the book. It lacked action, and it lacked drama, and it lacked these sort of tense moments. A lot of things, like everything just kind of happened in one, and it was a bit of a mess. Overall, I think that there were much better characters to focus on, and for the most part, what I liked about the book were only its connections to the trilogy, and not its standalone story, because for me it just wasn't engaging enough, and I didn't think that it was interesting enough. So that's my review. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you've read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Let me know what you think of it. If you do like The Hunger Games, I would recommend reading it and giving it a go and then forming your own thoughts on it. Obviously, it's an interesting one. There are bound to be different arguments and different opinions surrounding the book. If you liked President Snow's character, then you might actually be pleased with how this book turned out. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.